What's up, everybody? So I'm just going to talk about this on a recording. Kind of decided it's a better idea. Man, this shit's important, bro. There's a thing that I want to talk about, and it revolves around something that I have discovered through experimenting with my body, through masturbating, this shit is weird to talk about, dude. Trust me. This shit is fucking weird to talk about, okay? This is the weirdest topic ever, but it is important. I mean, I'm going to share some very, very personal things through this recording with people because I know it can help people. And I'm out here to help people. I'm not out here to deceive. I'm not out here to tell you what you want to hear either. This is what I want to share. So, masturbation. When I want to start by saying this is all coming from my experience, and I do not have the scientific data. I am not a doctor. This is something that I have done through experiments with my body, with masturbating, with abstinence, with semen retention. I've made tons of mistakes. I've gone through the doubts. I've gone through the concerns. I've gone through the ignorance of saying that doesn't work, that this is bullshit. I've played on both sides of the coin with NoFAP and semen retention, and I have come to the conclusion that neither one is right. That there is a balance. And this is some really amazing conclusion that I've come to with this, because I think this is very concrete for me. I experimented with semen retention, with NoFAP, with overall just abstinence. No masturbation, no sex, because I was single. And I have experienced some vast differences in my perception, in my hormones, just based on my energy levels and my mood. I've experienced the highs and the lows and the lows through experimenting with all this, and I've actually figured out how to balance myself. I've figured out how to balance my body and my mind, and maintaining some sort of balance with my emotions as well, because a lot of your emotions are affected from your hormones. Your hormones can affect your emotions and vice versa. I think vice versa, but it's usually just your hormones are affecting your emotions. What I want to get to, I'm just going to go ahead and cut straight to the chase. I've kind of discovered a cycle, right? I want to call it a recycle. I want to call it a cycle, because I'm going to give you two sides of the coin. You got the people that masturbate every single day. You got the people that masturbate all the time, watching porn 24/7. And then you have people, and if they're happy and if they're fine, if they don't feel like shit, if they're not depressed and anxious, that's great. From my experience, and I'm really just out here sharing my experience, masturbating too much has some detrimental effects on my mood, has some detrimental effects on my strength, has some detrimental effects on my body and my brain. I've seen it, and then that's just from doing it too much. Now, I've also gone to the opposite end of that spectrum and completely cut it off. And let me tell you, that's not good either. I see the drops in my energy levels. I see lethargic behavior. I see not caring. I see an overstimulation of my mind. I see a scatterbrain. I see a inability to focus. I see I've experienced all those things with myself. I've gone from each end of the spectrum, and I've discovered that how to balance it. And it's based on a cycle. It's based on something that I can literally measure, and it'll be the same thing every time. And what I've realized is that for my body specifically, and you're going to have to figure this out on your own if you want to experiment with this, you're going to have to figure out If you're experiencing negative emotion or negative effects from masturbating too much, what you want to do is you want to stop, and you want to see how your body reacts to that. And then after a certain amount of time where you've stopped, then you want to masturbate and see if you have the same negative effects that you were having after you masturbated. Now, if you're not having those same negative effects, that means that you waited long enough to not have the negative effects. But the most important thing here is that I used to have negative effects from masturbating too much, but as soon as I cut it down to a certain amount, I no longer had those negative effects anymore. So what you're going to be able to see is like there's a middle ground there in between those two ends of the spectrum, you know. And I've from my experience, I've gotten prostate infections. I've gotten a prostate infection from not masturbating enough. I've experienced sharp pains in my prostate. I've experienced really, really uncomfortable anxiety, stress, not being able to sleep from not masturbating enough. And then I've already talked about what happens when I do it too much. But my cycle for my body is 12 days. You can literally measure this every time with me personally. I've measured this multiple times. I've done this every 12 days, every 12 to 15 days. If I were to masturbate, I would see no negative effects, and I would see a recycle of my semen being produced in my body very quickly because my body's not depleted in any way. So this is super important because it's a way to keep yourself balanced. It's a way to say, okay, I'm not going to go over here and never masturbate ever again, because that's kind of ridiculous. That's kind of crazy. I think that's not smart, but I'm not going to be doing it every day. I'm going to show some self-control to a certain extent. And then that's where you're not going to see the negative effects. And for your body, you're just going to have to figure that out. I'm 24 years old. I've figured it out what works for me. And I've figured it out almost to the point where if I do it 10 days instead of 13, if I do it 7 instead of 12 days, if I masturbated on the 7th day that I've been retaining, I would still see negative effects. I would still see some depression or anxiety or changes in my mood or weakness in my body or mind. And if I did it on the 12th day, if I waited until 14 days, I wouldn't see any negative effects. And it just took another 7 days to build up more where I don't see any negative effects from it. So, again, if you're not experiencing any negative effects from masturbating too much, you don't need to worry about it. But I just noticed a correlation with it. You know, I noticed a correlation, and I've been on that side where it's like, oh, that's bullshit. I can masturbate whenever I want, and I did that. I was masturbating all the time. I didn't, no, it's bullshit. No, it's bullshit. But it didn't matter if I told myself it was bullshit, because it wasn't bullshit. I started to get depressed and anxious and stressed. I became very weak, and I became physically weaker, mentally weaker. And then I realized that there is something to this. I can't say there's not. And then I went on the opposite end where I never did it. And then I realized, well, wait, that's not good for me either. I'm seeing my energy levels decline after a certain amount of days. I'm seeing my energy levels just completely drop off. I'm seeing my some lethargic symptoms, some mental clouds. I'm seeing some inability to make good decisions after not masturbating for a certain amount of time. And then there's this sweet spot where what happens is you masturbate at a certain day, and you can measure this. And you masturbate at a certain day, and you see no negative effects. You actually see positive effects from masturbating. You'll see a positive effect where your brain, you'll get some clarity, you'll be able to focus, your energy levels will increase, your voice will get deeper, and that's at a certain time. So there is this time frame where you want to hit that middle point. You want to hit it on the bullseye every time you can. And what happens is your body recycles that semen. It recycles it recycles all the fluid that your testicles were making to build that up in the first place. And when you do it at a certain time where you've abstained for a certain amount of time, you're not going to see any negative consequences because you're not depleted. Your body is not depleted because you didn't do it too much. But you also don't want to never do it because you need to clean your prostate. You need to recycle your semen. So what I'm saying is there is this middle ground that I have found personally that I am like killing it on, dude. Like I'm killing it. I'm killing it. I'm dating more girls. I'm more successful in my job. I'm making more money. I'm more stable. I'm less stressed. You know, I'm overall, I've experienced like zero to no not a lot of depression or anxiety. I've experienced a balance in my life. There hasn't been these high highs and these low lows anymore. It's been this balance, and it's overall been good. I've overall been super happy and fulfilled and feeling like I'm being the best person I can be just from maintaining some balance with my masturbation habits, which is super weird and uncomfortable to share with people. But if this can have that big of an effect on me, I feel the need to share it. And that's why I'm making this recording. If you guys have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask. But again, the recycle period, I want to hit on this. The recycle period is super important because what happens is that semen is going to get old. That fluid that you've been holding in for 14 days is getting old. It needs to be released, and your body needs to make a fresh batch. And that is why you need to ejaculate. That's why you need to have that masturbation and that ejaculation eventually. But you got to figure out where you can do that and not have negative consequences from masturbating or letting that out. Now with sex, it just doesn't apply to the same rules as sex. That's important to note. It doesn't apply to the same rules as sex. From my experience with sex, it's actually healthier than... It's very healthy. There's not a whole lot wrong with that if you're in a healthy relationship with somebody and you're having sex with them a lot and you're ejaculating. You're not going to see the same sort of like anxiety or sadness or depression come over you because you're doing really what your body's designed to do, and that is to procreate and have a relationship with somebody and have that connection. It's going to just completely be a different experience. So this is pertaining to people that are single and to people that are kind of masturbating because they just need to have that release. That's really what you want to focus on. You masturbate when you don't have negative effects from it. If you notice X amount of days, you don't have negative effects from masturbating after X amount of days, and it's just going to take an experiment. You need to try it out on different ranges. This whole thing is going to have to. It requires self-control. It requires it. So that's important. And that's all I got to say is there is a recycle period. There is a sweet spot in there where you should masturbate. It's a good thing to do. There's a sweet spot in there where masturbation is a good thing. But there's also there's only a certain amount of time where that becomes a good thing. You know, and that is where you need to find that for your own body. Like, I've figured it out for me. I'm just sharing it. You know, I think this can help people, and I'm here to share my experience and knowledge with this. Again, I've been kind of experimenting with this for probably like 4 years, and I've gone through every end of the spectrum to where I've gone from, oh, that's bullshit, I can masturbate whenever I want, that's normal, healthy, you know, doctors say it's okay, everything online says it's fine, you know, WebMD saying this and it's cool, and then my experience speaks differently, and I readjust. I've been making, you know, I've readjust really all my actions with this, and I've finally come to the conclusion that there is this sweet spot, and for me, it is 12 to 16 days, and I would recommend you starting with that. Try that out. 12 to 16 days, retain for 12 days, and then release. Or retain for 14 days and then release. Retain for 16 days and then release. I wouldn't go past 17. That's a long time. It really depends on the person. See if you're having negative effects from that retainment. And then you can draw some conclusions from that. But I think this is very important. This is how if you can look at it over the long term, you know, over a year, you're only masturbating X amount of time, and you're doing it every 14 days, every 15 days, whatever, every 12 days. You have a structure, and it provides balance in your life, and it provides you with you're not retaining for too long, but you're also not depleting your body of what it really needs to have in it. And you're going to see just more success. You're going to see yourself be a better person. You're going to see yourself be happier. Your mood is going to stay pretty stabilized for the most part. Obviously, we all go through shit, and that's just life. But this is going to be extremely beneficial if you have the self-control to do it. And this is all self-improvement right here. I'm giving you the biggest fucking cheat code I think I've ever discovered for myself. And I hope that you guys listen to this shit and take it for real, because I'm not kidding. And this is like something that has really benefited my life. And I finally come to this conclusion with the NoFAPs. They're not right. But the people that are on NoFAP and telling you never to masturbate are wrong. The people that are telling you that you can do it whenever you want are wrong. But there is the sweet spot. There is that balance where you can find there's benefits to masturbating at a certain amount of time that you've retained. And you're going to have to figure that out for yourself. But I did give my recommendations. I wish you all the best. Peace.